I'd like to call the Wednesday, June 4th, 2025 Special Island City Council meeting to order. Janice, could you please call roll?
Councilmember Atlan.
Here.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Here.
Member LaFane. Here. Vice Mayor Maida
Here.
and Mayor Rhodes.
Here. Will you all join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
All five, all.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah.
Can I get a approval of the agenda?
Move to approve. Second.
We have a first and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Public comment, items not on the agenda. Does anyone have any public comment not on the agenda?
At the meeting last night, I heard more semi-truths and untruths about the golf course watering situation that I thought I'd like to bring my 2 cents to this. Everything I say, I believe to be true. If it's not true, my mistake, I apologize in advance. For 3 months, the sewer committee, Atlan, Ratton, and LaFave put Mule Creek water on the golf course.
I was never on
That
the
was not
committee.
legal to do because it was not zoned for either industrial waste or hazardous waste. It is now the product of Mule Creek is hazardous waste by definition. There were a number of things that were said. My understanding, once again, I talked with Justin and I believe this to be true. The Regional Water Control Board, who's responsible for public health, stopped the use of Mule Creek water, or stopped the use of ARSA water and the tertiary plant until 2 things were done. One, that the plant was totally bleached of the residue from Mule Creek contamination. That has not happened and did not happen until Justin last night gave George the first time that that ever had been accomplished. Secondly, you had to prove that the water from ARSA did not contain volatile organic chemicals. I don't know if that's been done. I don't know if that's city's responsibility or ARSA's responsibility. I fully believe that the Regional Water Control Board will be responsive and quick to address this once you guys are in compliance. The 2 things were said last night. Epperson said he was going to go over the heads of the Regional Water Control Board to get this reversed. Mark Twain said something that's very interesting. He said, make sure you know the true facts, then you can distort them all you want. You're not in compliance until last night at the earliest. They haven't been dragging their feet. So that's pure bull. Dominic came and said, well, what we ought to do is if they don't do this by today, we should turn on the water and break state law again. Not a good idea. I'd be very interested in whether the city attorney would have agreed with that. Also, Dominic, you said that given that now there is a clean bill of health for volatile organic chemicals, that we're clean, we're not. There's beneath the golf course is a 40-foot level is a permeable clay aqua retard. And all of the hazardous waste that came out of Mule Creek can't flow below that. It's sitting there. I wonder if it's going to wake up. I don't know. I don't think you guys know. Lastly, I would be really concerned, and I really am glad that the public health is being looked at by the Regional Water Control Board. There are, as Jack's newspaper has put out, there's a cluster of leukemia. the number of RSV and pneumonia is substantially higher at your elementary than in years past. How much of that, if any, and I hope none, is related to the poison you put on the golf course that kids rolled around in? So I hope that that's been helpful, and I believe that to be the truth.
Thank you, Jack.
There's two councilmen last night, you showed their real colors. They had a staff up here,
Let's get every.
staff up here almost in tears, or was in tears. And accused Jake Herkel of using money. And this is totally wrong. Jake has done more for this city than anybody sitting up there. And I don't give a dang what anybody says. And he wouldn't take a dime. You guys are terrible. And the other thing is, you brought up about the drawing of the depot not having the bathroom on it. That drawing was gifted this Kenny to Hankin a year before you guys even voted on it. I called the planner on it at that time, and it's funny, right after that, she quits. I just wanted to know that drawing was there a year before you guys even voted on it. You're just playing games because nobody wanted it. We're the only volunteers I know got escorted off of a job by cops because of these two, that person right there, one of them. Thank you.
I just want to speak up with what Larry's speaking on. Jake Herfel's been here for 40 years. Where do you think the play games came from? The snack shack at the baseball field, the showers, and I could go on and on. This man has given of himself so much, and you guys do this to everybody. Everybody's going to give up on helping this city. This city was built on volunteers. And like I said, I've been here, he's been here way longer than me, but 40 years. And I've seen that man step up and do so much. And all you can do is criticize. It's ridiculous.
Thank you, Mitzi.
Any other public comment?
I don't know if this is a good time to stand up after that because I'm on a different agendas here. But again, my name's Derek Baker with the Amador County Girls Softball. I wasn't able to make it here because thank goodness our softball program in high school has been doing an incredible job. So I was at the one of the Argonaut playoff games there. I just want to make sure now that our Parks and Rec council's back together that we are able to put things through Parks and Rec as I believe it was once designed and try to get some focus on softball fields. I heard $50,000 came in through ACRA and the money again is not being used for anything for softball. It's getting checked off for another basketball court and some other stuff. So I feel like again, softball's been pretty high on the list. It's been something all the way back, excuse me, from the I believe it was like the 2012 master plan. Softball was very high on the list. It's continued to be something that's been a high need of this area. Again, we have no softball fields in all of Amador County for these young ladies to play in. So again, this is just something I want to focus and hopefully this month or next month at the Parks and Rec, we can redirect and get some way to start figuring out how we're going to get this done. Because so far there's been nothing for 4 years. So thank you. I am an Ione resident. Again, Derek Baker, Amador County Girls Softball. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Anyone on Zoom, Chief? Nope. All right, we'll close public comment. I will hand the gavel over to the Vice Mayor to continue the meeting.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. We'll start with the first and only regular agenda item. conduct a preliminary hearing to consider proposed censure of Mayor Stacy Rhodes. This request was filed by Councilmember Allison LaFane. So let me continue with my introduction and more opening statements. Good evening. Council members and residents of Ione, a request for censure was filed by Councilmember LaFane of another council member, Mayor Rhodes. The item on the agenda this evening is a preliminary hearing to consider the request that was filed, and for the council to decide if it wishes to direct further action or investigation. Each council member will have an opportunity to speak to the complaint filed. Our city attorney has provided a recommendation for the procedure of this preliminary hearing before the proceeding commences. I will ask our city attorney to please explain the recommended procedure. City attorney, may I ask that you explain this?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We've done this before recently. It would follow the same procedure. Specific filing has been made with specific complaints and details. Generally, the discussion and comments should be focused on the content of that complaint. Mayor Rhodes will have an opportunity to make an opening statement. It will go to Councilmember LaFane to present her complaint, back to Mayor Rhodes to respond, and back to Councilmember LaFane again. At that time, it would be open for public comment, and then it would come back to the council for deliberation and action. And then before the council entertains the motion, Mayor Rhodes will have an opportunity to make a closing statement. I do want to add that in the agenda version of these documents, you will see some redactions. The council has access to an unredacted version. The redacted version is there because some of that information is not public or is under privilege held by the council. For the council to be aware of during your discussions, I would ask you to be mindful of going into the details too much of that redacted content. There's not much that's redacted, but some of it pertains to maybe a employee or personnel matter, or former council member communications that are under attorney-client privilege. I don't believe that should have much effect on the hearing, but to just be mindful to try to not go too much into detail on what's redacted in the agenda, although you can consider everything that's been provided to you in your unredacted version when considering further action. Just some comments for the council to be aware of. Turn it back to you, Vice Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Council, would you like to make any comments before the hearing begins or consider the time limits for each item? I think we should consider the time limits for each item. And my recommendation is 5 minutes per item.
By the public or by everybody?
4 minutes for the public, 5 minutes for us.
What did we do last time?
It was 5 minutes for the public,
There's
and unlimited for the council.
no time limits for the council and the standard 4 minutes for the public. For that, the public remains at 4. That'll be consistent.
Okay,
But for the initial back and forth between Councilmember LaFane and Mayor Rhodes, that would be where the time limits would apply.
that's where they will apply?
Yeah.
Okay, so that will come in, please help me, Josh, that will come in.
Opening statement, presentation,
Okay,
responses,
I understand.
closing statement, no limit on council deliberations.
Okay, are we good with that?
You'd have to propose a number.
Yes, I'm looking for somebody want to, I'll make a motion that we limit the time on 5 minutes.
To the public?
No, to the back.
To the back and forth.
Make a motion that we do exactly as we did last time.
I have a motion on the floor though, so.
I made a second motion.
I'll second the second motion.
Yeah, you have a motion
Okay.
you have a motion for no time limits. So you can vote on that.
Am I allowed to vote?
You're allowed to vote on time limits, yeah.
Okay, I'll second it.
First or second for allowing time limits, 5 minutes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose?
No.
No.
Okay, noes have it.
What was that again?
No time limits.
No time limit?
No time limit.
Time limits.
Okay. All right, we'll continue. Okay, Mayor Rhodes, Would you like to make an opening statement?
Just my opening statement is thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on. Councilmember LaFane, would you like to present the complaint you filed?
Yes. So you have no response, Mayor Rhodes, to any of these complaints?
He has more opportunities to respond. He's just not an opening statement.
Okay, then I'll wait till he responds to the complaint.
Well, he's foregoing his opening statement, so this would be your presentation of your complaint. You'll have another chance to respond to his comments, though.
All right. What you have in front of you is about 2.5 years of observation, being involved in council, being on one side of the council, and then deciding I didn't belong to any side of the council. I've watched things happen, usually behind the scenes that you're not aware of. When recently in this last year, a lot of stuff has come up. Most of this was prompted by the recent easement that was brought before this council, sort of out of the blue. That prompted me to do a public records request to try to get more information. Parties within the city were denying any involvement, which didn't make sense. Because originally I had filed this with Josh and withdrew it. Until this easement came up. And I looked into it further. And I just didn't look into it halfway. Today, some more information came out. So this needs to be talked about. It needs to be investigated. And at no time was the city of Ione ever considered in these decisions. So that is the reason it's here. I mean, I could strip everything out of this complaint if I wanted to and just bring counts 1 and 2. And I know we hired a special investigator for the last one. It was a waste of money. He was bombarded with 3,000 emails. I think that's a waste of the city's time. I'm going to make recommendations at the end once you guys hear everything that is in this complaint. And so that's where I'm at with this.
At the conclusion of your remarks, council member?
Yep.
Mayor Rhodes, would you like to provide any response, ask questions, or call others to the podium?
What's in this stack of papers is either lies, twisted truth, or just plain bullshit. I will not waste everyone's time and money explaining these accusations tonight. However, I will probably pay for a page or two in the local paper in the near future to address these false accusations. What I will do is explain why Councilmember LaFane is trying to censor me / shut me up. She is being censored for meddling in on going behind the back of the Ione City Council and negotiating with the owner of the golf course without permission, which has hindered the sale of the golf course. Castle Oak should have and would have been sold months ago if it wasn't for her illegal actions. Now the golf course looks like crap and the negotiations have been compromised. The other reason and why one other council member is supporting the censor and trying to shut me up is the Title 22 issue. When the draft Title 22 was sent to the Regional Water Board, it was rejected. And the response back was, the Regional Water Board will not allow Ione to discharge water on the golf course without complete and accepted Title 22 report. And I quote, the draft excerpt of Title 22 and last year's mitigation and monitoring report was troubling to human health and safety. Why did they come up with this conclusion? I'll tell you why. Last year, 3 council members allowed wastewater from ARSA to be switched to a source that was industrial waste to be applied to the golf course. Myself and council member Mitchell were extremely pissed, to say the least. As we have said over and over, we cannot run industrial waste through our water treatment plant and apply it to the golf course. When the treatment plant was shut down last season, it still had this residual of water left in it. When samples were taken for the Title 22 report, this was the water that was sent to the water board and triggered the water board. That again, industrial waste was being put on the golf course. With that said, that's all I have to say.
Okay, moving on. Councilmember LaFane, would you like to provide any additional comments?
Yes, I would. Mayor Rhodes said the trigger of the Title 22 was triggered by our plant. The Title 22 was not triggered by our plant. Title 22 was triggered by an application submitted to the Water Resources Board on behalf of US Mine. Part of their project was if they were going to go through with their well, let's tie it back to AWA. Let's tie it back to the easement, the free water that's going to go to US Mine, that somebody here granted an easement through agreements with AWA and US Mine. I thought that was just part of it. But then on further research, I located not only AWA's project, which would cost the taxpayers potentially $15 million. They say it right in their report. They could pass that cost on to the taxpayers. And that was at a value, I think, of about $250,000 of water per year for free going to US Mine, while the city pays $90,000 a year to water Howard Park. Today, just on my lunch hour, thought I'd go back and look at the water board a little deeper and look into US Mine's project. US Mine has a hearing on June 20th. One of the stipulations in that agreement for US Mine to get their discharge permit is that the city of Ione needs to get a new Title 22. That's an agreement with US Mine and the Water Resources Board. We didn't know anything about that. That Title 22, you guys have all said, it's this, 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 and this. But what it's hinging on is US Mine's massive project. So that's in writing. I have copies of it from the latest water board saying that if US Mine plans on using any additional water, excluding the raw water from AWA, that their other discharger, the city of Ione, needs to apply for a Title 22. That's what triggered this. Our Title 22 had been silent for 23 years. Water Board had never looked at it. This application prompted them to look at it. Then they realized they hadn't even signed off on it. There was nothing wrong with the Title 22. They just didn't sign off on it. And there were a few new requirements. So that's a piece that you guys haven't had. Nobody's had it. I've sat here and watched Mayor Rhodes vote on improvements while you paid for it, for a Title 22 that's going to benefit US Mine in the long run. I'm not against US Mine. What I'm against is all of this has been hidden and we're paying for it. And we would have continued to pay for it if we hadn't stopped that easement. That easement gives us a lot of leverage. You've read in there, listen, there's nothing wrong with the easement. It's the way it was presented. That easement can go through, but the city of Ione is not going to take it in the shorts and give away free water while we continue to pay for it. that's where I'm at, and Mayor Rhodes can respond to that. The US Mine has a hearing on June 20th with the Water Board. All of this information is public documents. I think the Water Board has some explanations to do. I see just in the last 2 weeks, the engineer from AWA left and an engineer from the Water Board left. 2 key people left. This is something that is probably above this council. But if Mayor Rhodes has a response to that, why it was concealed, why he did not bring this to council 4 years ago, I'm ready to hear it. But we've spent close to $1.2 million on a Title 22. And the Water Board never made one mention about this application that included the city of Ione. So not sure how we got on US Mine's application. I'd like to hear an explanation for that. But if something is holding the water up on the golf course and this ties into it, I don't know if it does or not, but it's something to look at. Because you've got all the same parties on the same agreements, on the same emails. And you've had a lot of people concealing all of this information from you and this council. I'm done with that.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Rose, would you like to make a closing statement or wait until a later part of the hearing?
I'll respond. That's all a lie. I'll be putting the explanation in the paper.
Well,
Would you?
we have a copy of the report.
Let's all talk up, but our time, please. It's our turn. Mayor, would you like to make a closing statement though? Nope, now or later, okay. Okay, at this time, I would like to open the hearing for public comment, and it will be 4 minutes. So please, anybody who'd like to speak, welcome to go to the podium and speak. Thank you.
Good evening, Marcia Edick. I'm not going to stand up here and pretend like I really understand everything about tertiary plants and Title 22 reports and easements and so on and so forth. My occupation for 25 years has been as a private investigator. So I investigate. I look at data. I do research. And I have done a little bit of research on this, and I've read the documents submitted by Allison Lefane, most of them, not all the exhibits. And then I recall, comments made about, 2 years ago of contaminated water on the golf course, and apparently those claims were made, I believe, by the mayor and maybe Mr. Mitchell and potentially others. And then I remember in January this year at a meeting, we need to get the repairs and maintenance done to move forward with the Title 22 report. And I do remember that of the council members, it did pass, but there was one in particular, our mayor, who voted against authorizing additional funds. So that kind of begs the question as to how, what his level of interest is in really getting the golf course watered with irrigation, or whether his primary interest is in redirecting that water to his employer, which is US Mine. I believe, based upon what I have heard and what my research shows, that this is more than just circumstantial evidence, okay? And clearly more investigation needs to be done, but not by this council. I'm thinking that this needs to be investigated by a higher authority, some agency. I don't know who that is. My first thought is perhaps the Attorney General's office. Because in my opinion, and again, it's just my opinion, that what has happened and the documents that we have, it's not just circumstantial because there's actual documents to support what Ms. Fain is saying and what Mr. Atlin has said is that the city is going to pay the price and this kind of borders on criminal. And something needs to be done, but it can't be done by the people in this room. There has to be a higher entity, a higher agency to take all of this data and do the research and come up with an answer as to, are we right or in our suspicions, or has this been a wild goose chase? But again, given what I've done for 25 years, it seems to be, to me, that there is a reasonable, more than reasonable suspicion to believe that the claims that are being made are in fact true. And I'm hoping that we get an agency involved, because you know what, this has to stop. And the city of Ione has been my home for 18 months, and I love this town, and I don't want it to fail by anybody, by anybody's hands.
Okay, any more public comment? Mr. Rhodes?
Yeah, the plant had an easement through that park for, ever since it's been there. And everybody knows it. There's been an easement through that park, and Mr. Hankin somehow tried to get rid of it. She brought up a bunch of stuff about a fire hydrant. Kenny Mackey got up here and says the city's been illegal for probably 15 years. When they cut the water off the plant, they didn't have no water in the hydrant where the propane tanks were at for like 15 years. Nobody turned that in, and he was on the council then. Never said a word about it. Never even looked at it. Talk about criminal. Yeah, and then Kenny gets up here and says it. It's Stacy's company. He didn't have nothing to do with it. Rick Kress, the one that got that paid for and hooked up so the hydrant was legal. How come none of this comes out? Thank you.
More public comment, please?
I'm not, I have a question. If I ask questions, will they be answered, or do I just make a comment?
Purely up to the council if they wish to respond.
Then you need to let
Okay.
everybody respond.
On, I'm not an expert in any of this stuff with Title 22, but I do know that many years ago, the city, Dominic was on the board then, and they turned down, we were getting water from ARSA, and they gave like 5 years and told them they don't want the water anymore from there. I was on a committee with the prison out there when this happened. And what I don't understand is you guys are going back about this Title 22, and she's saying that it was never, ever questioned. But didn't we have to have that Title 22 like 3 or 4 years ago? Why is this such a big surprise? You're shaking your head no. We didn't have to have a Title 22?
We had one. We filed it in 2003.
It was never signed off on.
Well,
It's been
then it's not
legally
any good if
not
it wasn't
complete.
signed
Correct.
off on. It's not any good. That's like me typing up a contract and never getting a signature. So I don't understand if they needed that Title 22. And I wish somebody would speak up. I don't know if you can, George, about that easement and what the big deal is. Can you speak up?
Ask the chair.
The chair will allow Mr. Lee to speak up.
Said he didn't know anything about it.
Thank you.
I don't know what, Ms. Member LaFane is talking about, the easement agreement between US Mines and the AWA. The city has nothing to do with that. I don't know why that's even being brought up. That's none of the city's business. That's an agreement between AWA and US Mines. We've never been involved, I can assure you that. I've never even heard of this before. So again, I don't know what that relevance has to do with this particular hearing is because this is a censure against Mayor Rhodes about things he did. He's not involved in this, the easement. It's a U.S. Mines. So
You know, AWA said the only person they spoke to was you, George, about the easement. It's in an email.
Okay. Mr. Lee, are you finished with your comments?
your email,
It's right here. It's in the exhibits.
show it to the public.
They have it. It's in the exhibits.
Okay, but Larry McKinney was here in public saying that
Use a microphone, please, George.
Larry McKinney, the general manager of the Amador Water Agency, was here saying that he brought up the easement with U.S. Mines. Now, which easement are you talking about? I don't know. You seem like there's a lot of easements
We're
involved.
on city property.
You mean the one that's already there?
Well, if it's already, no, that's one they're talking about. This is another easement that,
Yeah.
remember, the engineering firm was out there for 6 months? And everybody
I don't-
pretended like they didn't know there was an
I didn't have anything to
AWA
do with that.
engineering
That wasn't
company out there for
sponsored-
6 months doing a study.
So was that sponsored by the
So,
city? It was
but
not sponsored by.
Larry McKinney said, an email was sent to Larry McKinney. We said, who was in these closed sessions? He said Stacy was in them, but the only one he spoke to about an easement was George Lee.
Yes, and this was the new easement that he was implying to. Okay, not the easement that's already there, but that they're working on. The only easement that he mentioned was regarding the easement with respect to the backwash. Okay,
Yeah.
and he put it on, and he said, he didn't think it was going to be a big deal, so he put it on himself. So he was here that meeting. So
I know I was here, but
again, so
sent an
you're talking
email.
about 6 months of.
he sent an email prior to his visit here clearly and said the only person he talked to about this easement in Howard Park was you.
About
And you
that
denied
particular easement.
any knowledge during that meeting. You said you didn't know about an easement,
Until he had it in the agreement, yes. I didn't know about it until he put it in the agreement.
but that's not what Larry McKinney wrote in his email.
Well, you know what? Let's
Well,
get
he's
him
still
out.
looking.
Let's, I'd like to make a comment. Let's stick to the topic here at hand. We're here regarding this censure motion, censure request on Mayor Rhodes, and we're getting off topic.
But
It's part of the
at the end of the day,
I've read
This doesn't
every
have anything to
bit
do
of the
with-
censure. I know it's part of the topic, but, we're getting out of, we need to be more professional here.
Can I finish? If it was 6 months ago, why didn't you bring it up then and get upset then instead of doing
We
it
didn't know
now?
about it.
Huh?
We didn't know about it until it was brought to a council meeting, just out of the blue. Here,
But you just said it was 6 months ago that Larry McKinney was here and was
I never
talking.
said he was here 6 months ago. He came in May. The agreement for the turf was brought to us in February.
That's a
out of the
whole
blue.
different thing. The agreement for the turf is a whole different thing.
They
It's
stuck
not
the
a-
easement in it.
Okay, continue public comment. Thank you, Ms. Winley.
There we go
Any-
again. There we go again. It wasn't too long ago that that lady right there tried to get her kicked out of here. The people voted and we kept her in here, right? And it cost us over $10,000. I don't know if anybody knows it, but she cost us $10,000 over nothing. Okay,
Sure.
and number two, you gotta go up to the waterworks
Public
and read all their stuff
On the topic.
instead of this bullshit. The reason they're getting that, US Mine is doing us a favor. They're getting rid of that damn recycled water that they run through their plant up there. And it cost them too much money. And if they have to continue to do what they're doing up there, the backflush, they're gonna have to raise our rates. Because the reason they put that in, if you go way back, it was some state deal said you had to reclaim that water. So everybody said, that's a good idea, but they forgot how much it was gonna cost down the road. And it's costing so much money that they want to get rid of it, and they found a place to get rid of it. And Allison, if she goes on, it's just gonna cost every taxpayer in this town more money for your water. Get that in your head. You need to go up there and read and find out why they want to get rid of that backflush. Oh, yeah, but I just can't, but no.
You can't read.
No, but it was in the paper. The reason they want to get rid of it is costing too much money. And it's cheaper just to send it over to them if they get to it.
charge them.
And you're trying to stop it. Every time somebody wants to do something in this town, I've noticed, you try to stop it. Because I don't know if you're jealous. of Stacy or anybody? I don't understand. You think you'd get behind it and say, give them the water. They're gonna get more water. Maybe they're gonna hire more people, be more money for the city of Ione. You gotta think above the elevator, you know? You try to shoot everything down. They're getting water for the golf course out of a sump over there. And I heard, I don't know, there was somebody up here that was there's 2 or 3 people trying to stop it. And the reason the treasury plant's not running is because they've been running contaminated water through there because of stupidity. Everybody said, don't run Mule Creek water through there. But some of the councilmen said, oh yeah, it's okay, they need water. Well, this is what happens. And the last operators that run that place, they run that thing into the ground. So wake up, Allison, and you need to just go on a trip and just keep going and don't come back. You need to leave.
Okay. Anyone else for public comment?
I just feel like I need to say something. I was at that meeting that she's talking about. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with anybody here, but it was brought up. The easement had not been talked about. Amador Water came up and released that to us. We didn't get that information from you guys. It was a guy standing here that said there was an easement. It was questioned then, and it sort of got quickly dismissed by Mr. Lee here, who just went like, I don't know. Everybody acted like they were stupid, and it hasn't been brought up since then. So I'm not in anybody's corner, but I was here for that meeting and I did see exactly what happened. The guy was talking about that US Mine was going to save them money because they had to take trucks full of water and they were going to put it in a pipe. Well, then it came up, where's the pipe going? The pipe was going through that Howard Park. And then the question came up, did you ask for an easement with the city? So I heard the whole conversation. If you guys watch the tape, you'll see exactly what I'm saying. So I'm not disagreeing or agreeing with anybody's agenda, but I was here for that meeting and it was a water guy that talked about it and said he had an easement. So he was talking about saving money on the trucks and putting a pipe through Howard Park and going to US Mine. So just to set the record straight, I was here for that one.
I wasn't here for any of the meetings, but there is always, I don't know if it's the easement you guys are talking about. There has been one out there going through the picnic grounds since I was a little girl, and I'm 77 years old. And there was, the pipe took the water to the plants, to Gladding McBean, and then I'm not sure the other,
You're dating yourself now, but
they always had water, and it went through that pipe. So I don't know if that's the easement you guys are talking about. But Ione doesn't have enough water for the new houses that they're building, so I don't know why you're, causing problems, with the city. I mean, the water agency's the one that's raising the water rates. Anyway, I just didn't thought, if that's the same easement that you guys are talking about. I mean, it always went through the Howard Park.
Thank you, Bonnie.
John Alford, Chief of Police. So when I read Councilmember LaFane's censure against Mayor Rhodes, I was floored. That complaint refers to me, my company, my business, as well as my department. So I want to set some things straight and clarify some things. In your complaint, number 5, abuse of city resources, you wrote, in June 2024, my city email account began having issues. I brought my phone to the chief of police, which I'm the only one in town, multiple times, as his firm manages our email server. Okay? That's a complete lie. My company has zero to do with the city of Ione. In fact, I asked our finance manager today to run my company name in the computer. Okay? I'm going to read an email that she sent me. This is dated today at 10:07 a.m. Good morning. I searched our vendor files and I do not show a vendor payment made to Outlet Tech. My company is Outlet Tech. We do have a company that is contracted to do IT services, and that is Computer Brokers out of Stockton. So again, in your statement, you named me. Okay, I thought this censure was about Stacy Rhodes, you know, the mayor, and you refer to my company. This makes it appear that I have a conflict of interest and I'm doing unethical things. For the record, my company, again, has nothing to do with the city of Ione. Okay? The stuff I do for the city, I do as an employee of the city of Ione. All right? Your statement is, and your censure is a lie, straight lie. And since you made it a public document, it can harm my reputation and that of my company. My son, who runs my company, is sitting right here. And when he heard about that, he was not very happy. You continued to say I was forced to use an alternative email address to communicate. However, the issue was created after Rhodes instructed staff to monitor my emails. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but if you look at the city handbook, section E, technology use, it talks about use of city email, okay? And then if you look at the protocol manual, section 3.02, office equipment, it talks about the use of email. And it gives the city the right to monitor, delete, look at, you know, all that stuff. I will tell you right now that I was, in October 2024, the city manager instructed me to start monitoring your email, okay? And it was over concerns about closed session. Mayor Rhodes did not instruct me to, you know, monitor your email. So that is another lie in this document. And again, you made this a public document.
Sure did.
So then you also mentioned on Monday, March 17, 2025, Mayor Rhodes had been arrested by law enforcement. And then you talked about the meeting, and then you finished it up with the Ione Police Department also published a statement citing his cooperation during the arrest. Today was Rhodes' arraignment. He failed to appear and a bench warrant was issued. So I'd like to clarify that as well. First of all, I don't even know why it's in there. You have some issue with the police department, and now you're sitting there attacking a department, an entire department in the city. That night, time's up?
Time's up.
Okay.
You can.
Okay.
I will too. I will too.
Can't do that.
They did last night.
Oh, ma'am.
We allowed that last night at the previous meeting, so I think that established precedence, Josh?
Leave it to the chair.
Chair allows you to use someone's time.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Good.
To just clarify things, the night of the incident. Sorry, I got a bunch of notes here. So my officers received a call for service on March 17, 2024 of minor traffic collision behind the post office. Officers were advised that Mayor Rhodes was involved and may have been drinking alcohol. Officers responded to the scene and began an investigation. I received a phone call at home regarding the incident and advised my staff to contact Mayor Rhodes and request CHP be notified if they detected the odor of alcohol. Mayor Rhodes didn't answer his door because he was asleep. And so my officers called me up and said, "Hey, chief, he's not answering his door." And so I called Mayor Rhodes' cell phone and told him, "Hey, my officers are out front. They need to talk to you about this accident." Mayor Rhodes, in fact, he jokes about it now, don't answer your phone if the chief calls in the middle of the night. But Mayor Rhodes went out, let the officers in, and cooperated with the investigation, and ultimately was arrested by CHP. The police department issued a statement due to misinformation circulating on social media. Okay. And I purposely had CHP conduct the DUI investigation, so there's no conflict of interest and there was no favor to Mayor Rhodes. All right? You seem to think, and you've said this to me personally, all right, that the police department protects Mayor Rhodes and that, you know, he doesn't get in trouble for stuff. You also mentioned that he FTA'd. That's true. Mayor Rhodes did miss his court date and an FTA was issued. The court date was changed and he was unaware, something with his attorney. The day the warrant was issued, my staff advised me and I called Mayor Rhodes and said, hey, you have a warrant coming to the PD. That night he came down, we cited him out on the warrant, gave him a new court date, and it was taken care of. And that's a common practice that the police department does. Actually, my phone's over there. So I received a text message from you on the, yeah, could you hand me my phone, please? On the.
Oh, got a regular team going here.
Okay. So I received this text message on Friday, May 16th. Says, thanks for the warning ticket. I was with the investigator and had surgery last Friday. No other spot at the time and took the closest I could, but I'll remember not to do it again. You remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So I received this text message on my city issued phone on the 16th when I was in Orlando, Florida with my wife on vacation. Wasn't even in the city. Okay. You were not cited. You were warned for the violation. What you didn't know is a month earlier, I was at a lunch meeting with the city manager over at the hotel. On my way back to City Hall, I observed Mayor Rhodes' vehicle parked in the same spot yours was parked, okay, or in the general location on the white line. I turned around, went over to Don Luis where Mayor Rhodes was, and had a talk with him about it. Told him you cannot park there. Mayor Rhodes, what did I say was going to happen if you parked there again?
You were gonna call me at night. You'd write me a ticket.
Is telling you.
Okay. So my problem is your narrative that the police department protects Mayor Rhodes.
We have,
harms-
well, time's up. So we had another individual wants to get time. Okay.
That it harms harms the reputation of the entire Ione Police Department. You should be ashamed of yourself for even insinuating that the police department staff are unethical. Your comments create a hostile work environment for the police staff and the city as a whole. I'm almost done. So, and I'm going to paraphrase these last two to save time. But in claim 6, you put a little section in here. In June, the city will lose its city engineer after enduring harassment for non-payment of services for over a year. They choose to move on. At public meetings, staff discredited their work in violation of the city's code of conduct, with Rhodes misrepresenting their invoices from the dais as his supporters would discredit them during public comment. So again, you're attacking staff and claiming staff are violating policy. This is disturbing. And I was part of these conversations. You talk about protecting taxpayers' money, but you selectively choose who to pay. Remember Weber Gio? There were 2 invoices that you're referring to in this statement, and both were for the police department. So again, you focusing on the police department.
Know that.
Can I talk, please?
Well, you just
These
made,
are- these-
how would I know those invoices were for your department?
You knew they were for the department. I'm going to explain right now. The first was for the drawings of the remodel of the new police facility that went back there twice.
We don't get that information.
Okay.
We get invoices.
It was discussed in the meeting. The second one was for the traffic.
You're reaching.
I'm not reaching. These are facts. The second one was for the traffic map for the Christmas parade, which we were billed $10,000 for, which we thought was excessive. Okay. Again, it seems like you're sitting here, this is supposed to be about Mayor Rhodes, but you keep saying stuff about the police department and these things, or attacking things with the police department. We know you don't like me and that's fine.
That's your
Okay.
interpretation, Don.
Last thing I wanted to discuss or touch on is you noted in here, quote by Mayor Rhodes from the paper, "The 2 years I was mayor, I donated my city paychecks to the police and fire, negotiated and raised more than 300,000 for police station or for police and fire departments." And then you have interference in the negotiations of bargaining units is covered under the Political Reform Act. The issue is, again, you're sitting here, talking about police and fire, all right? And at least you threw fire in on this one. I just want to clarify some things. His paychecks, he donated to the Ione Police Foundation. He went and bought a raffle prize. It wasn't even a raffle prize. It was well, I'm just talking about what you wrote here, okay? He purchased an auction item, which we auctioned off. The $300,000 that he got for police and fire actually came from Harris. He talked to Harris and got them to do it. When I first started here, Harris was continually giving the city money. I'm sure, you remember that. And then it kind of died off when there was the lawsuit with the county. And Mayor Rhodes talked to Harris and got them to give
So
the city
he
money.
did it as the mayor.
So,
My point.
well, here's the thing. He was trying to help the city and he didn't do it as just the mayor because I was involved in that with
He
him.
used it as a campaign
Okay,
statement.
so your conduct and actions have become a liability.
Yes, I
On
know.
multiple occasions, you've made comments to me during meetings. Okay? And the harassment of staff is unacceptable. Last night at the council meeting, one staff member was so upset, she was almost in tears. On several occasions, you looked at me and tried to direct me to talk to people or violate their rights. Last night, you told me to speak to Larry Rhodes because he was staring at you. It's not illegal to stare at somebody on the dais. Okay? And then, it's not illegal for someone to wear a piece of clothing supporting a particular candidate, which you try to have me stop that last year.
This is.
Mr. Lee,
against
Mr.
the
Varnsky,
Police Department, Josh.
Mr. Lee,
He's way
Mr.
outside of the
Vronsky.
censure report. He's not sticking to the claims. He's reaching out for other stuff.
are you
He doesn't-
trying to violate my First Amendment right? Because I am talking
go.
during public
You mean the ones
comment.
that you give to,
Okay.
He's in a public comment. Josh, I believe he's,
Mr. Lee, Mr. Varnsky, I'm formally requesting that my comments tonight be a formal complaint against Councilmember LaFane. The harassment and hostile work environment need to stop. Thank you.
and this will go in my EEOC complaint. About when you chased me outside.
There's a whole quorum here on your side. I don't know you that well, but I don't like you. And there's a whole lot of people in this room I don't like as a result of them liking you. I don't like you either, George. I like that man and I like that woman because they seek truth. They tell truth. They don't tell lies. Don't laugh at me. I gave you an opportunity to get yourself up here and make a fool out of yourself. I have an opportunity to speak and I'm going to speak it.
okay.
Allison, you go. I hope you resign. Thank you.
You're welcome.
No,
More public comment?
I'm emotional, so I like all of you, and this is really sad. And I reached out to all 5 council members and asked to please, can we just take care of our city and quit fighting? And
Agreed.
I said the same thing.
I know you all have personal issues and everything, but if we could just put that aside and just take care of our city, because I know all of you have a love for it, you wouldn't be up there. We could just, and I just took offense to her saying that because you're all great people, and for you to not like us because you think we don't like them. I respect them all.
I'm not speaking in.
Well, anyway,
I appreciate
thank you for everything you guys do.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
I just want to say liberalism is a mental disorder.
Thank you, Mr. Vicari.
You have to kind of excuse me. I'm kind of mentally trying to grasp the fact that for a long time, I'm not the most pissed off person in the room. You know, and it's like, wow, I'm really kind of digging this. But anyway, about 2.5 years ago, Ms. LaFane, you asked me to take you and a friend and show you what was going on with the wastewater. And I tried the best I could, and I took you over to Mule Creek and I showed you Mule Creek coming out of the golf course, bank to bank, 8 inches to a foot thick, trickling off onto the Silva property and gently percolating into her ground. And here we are tonight with that kind of situation going on every minute of every day in that golf course. And you're aware of this and the other. And yet, what are we all here tonight for but some kind of administrative little beef? And I'm sorry, it's time for everybody to just suck it up and do the job that people elected you to do. Ione has a number of issues, and it's time to start working on them. Now, can I answer any questions or respond to any comments while I'm here? Thank you. Y'all have a nice night.
Thank you for your comments.
Okay, now I got shut down in public comment, Josh. Remember?
Okay.
Thank you, John, for standing up
I'll put
and
that in my
protecting
complaint.
the staff's reputation. And I want to just say something about my reputation. This was laid out in public on part of the censure document. It was written by Allison LaFane. In 2024, another individual and I observed the city clerk arrive after hours at City Hall. She unlocked the side door and let in Rhodes's father, who was carrying a document. When I left at 5:20, they were still inside with lights off. Okay. She has never, ever admitted that we had a meeting that night with the the finance manager at the time, and Andrea Bonham. So next time you put out an email like this to public, you better finish the story.
I will.
Any other people? Anyone else like to speak tonight? Mr. Rhodey.
Another special meeting, another high-priced attorney. Had a lot of attorney preparing all this information, a little tit for tat. He censured you, you censure him, somebody else censures somebody else. What the hell is going on? Let's get down and work on the city of Ione problems and get rid of this personal bitching back and forth. Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodey.
How did this come about? No, Josh, no, Stacy brought it about. Stacy created the policy. The censure policy.
Okay,
That's not for me.
Mr. Cody, Mr. Gold, I mean.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel obligated to speak. I spoke at the last one of these. I kind of want to echo those comments that I do think these censored things in the long run, it's a waste of time and resources. There's nothing that's going to come from this. You've been censored once. He's still here. He's the mayor again. So there's nothing legal is going to happen because of these. That it's reminiscent of, like, I feel like I'm watching a U.S. Senate committee hearing. You know, we're spending days and hours and digging in to figure out what was going on in the secret emails and servers and whatever. We should be focused on the things that matter. Lisa, Mr. Rhodey, I'm with them. I think I'm part of the group that I truly am not Team Allison or Team Stacy. I just want to see us work together and work on some things that are going to make a difference. 198 pages of supporting documentation in this package tonight. It's impressive. That's an impressive amount of research
I had more.
and time and effort that was spent on this. Imagine if we spent that much time and effort on the budget and researching possible funding sources for things like economic development. So that maybe we can make a dent in our revenue shortfalls that were highlighted a few meetings ago by the previous finance director. Maybe we could figure out how the city can get funds together to make an offer on the piece of property here on Preston Avenue next to the bridge. Would make an ideal parking area that would provide people access to the downtown corridor, businesses on Main Street, businesses at the plaza. I think that would be a huge thing for us to figure out how to do. This, I don't see any gain from it. Maybe instead of complaining about the easement that wasn't approved, by the way, and researching how it came to be on the agenda in the first place, maybe we can research how we, as the city, can take that back flush water and irrigate the soccer fields with it. I think that would be more
We already do.
productive than this. So, with that, I guess that's my statements. Again, I didn't agree with the first one, still don't. We spent time, money, hired private investigators, and I don't want to see us do that again because I think it's a waste of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Cody.
I do have one on Zoom too.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Anybody else here? We'll take the one on this Zoom.
Go ahead.
Got me?
Go ahead.
You can hear me? Okay. Well, I can't hear you, but I'm going to continue to talk. This is Christy with Feed the Joy. And I got to say, I worked for Contra Costa County for 22 years and worked with people that I detested. But I conducted myself professionally. I'm not seeing that here. I got one question for you, Josh, because you're the guy that you and maybe Mr. Lee would know. Is there any way to put this group of 5, somewhere for a timeout, for want of a better term? Get their things all hammered out where it's not interfering with the city, the running of the city. And then if they manage to hammer it all out and learn to be professional, then they'll be allowed to come back, and then we'll continue on, because this is getting the city nowhere. So, Josh, I'm going to ask you, I run my business on a Social Security income, which is a little bit tight, but if you could give me 15 minutes of your time, I'd be happy to pay for it. I'm not asking the city to pay for it, but if there's a way to get this thing on reset so that we can continue on, that would be great. And I appreciate your help. Thank you.
Ma'am, I'm happy to speak with you. I cannot seclude the council to speak with each other. But thank you for your comments.
Okay, anybody else on public comment tonight? Yeah. How about nothing on the chief? Okay, well, then we'll move ahead and move on. I will now close the public comment period for this hearing and bring the discussion back to the council. I ask the council to consider the complaint and if further action should be considered. So at this time, we open it up for council comments and deliberation.
Don't we have closing first?
That would, no, this is council deliberations. And then he can make a closing statement before any motion is made if he'd like.
Do I get a closing statement?
Nope.
Oh, well, I have copies of the order if anybody wants to see them. Showing that US Mine's going to take City of Ion's tertiary water.
Okay, is anybody here? Any council comments? No? You have some comments, Mr. Allen?
Yes, okay. So I'm going to try and keep this on the facts, okay? Clearly, there are, unfortunately, people that don't like each other. And unfortunately, that rolls over to staff, and that's not good. We need to get along whether we like each other or not. Most of the, I'm just going to go on three things. There's some things in here I agree with, and some things that are, let's just say, speculation or allegations, which is not a lie, Chief. It's an allegation, okay? That's why we're doing this. So it could be true, it could not be true. I don't know. So let's talk about, I got three things. First of all, the easement. So there's confusion on this easement, right? There's a Unimin mine easement of raw water that's been there since whatever, 1940, right? That one goes to the Unimin mine, which was purchased by the US mine. And that one was abandoned, I think, in 2015, when, if you remember, the softball fields were getting, they turned off the water because it was leaking, and the $3,000 a month water bill, which we'd love to get that back again. They shut it off. And I believe it sat for a couple of years, and then the US mine bought it. And they were approached to fix the pipe. They had no use for water at the time, and they didn't decline to do it, and the city ended up doing it. So I believe that Unimin pipe is still in fragments, and the US mine can at any time go and fix that pipe. They already have an easement on that. The one that we're talking about is there's a backwash system over at the treatment plant, little treatment plant, and they want to take that backwash water and run that to the US mine, and they need an easement for that because that's not an existing easement. So there's the confusion on the two easements. My problem with, and what I agree with in the Central documents is this, is that Stacey Rhodes has been negotiating with the water agency. It's on record. There's emails from the general manager of the water agency talking about that easement, and he should have recused himself. I don't know what he's talking about in these meetings. I have no idea. But because he works for US Mine, he should have recused himself from that. So that I agree with, that needs to be looked at. The other thing is the Title 22 report. The Title 22 report was done. So way back in, I don't know, 2001, Regional Board comes in, I'm working at the golf course, and they ask the city for their Title 22 report, and the city can't find it. Now they have to have one because you can't run the plant without it, but the city couldn't find it. So they made the golf course pay for the Title 22 report, which was completed in 2002, something like that. The Title 22 report was submitted to the Regional Board, and in that report, and you can read it, it's a public document. In that report, it says, I'm paraphrasing, but if the department, at the time was Department of Health Services, so if the DHS has any more questions for you, you have 45 days to respond. And so that was the end of that. So it got put in a file, I guess, somewhere. Now, Joe Spanos was the head of the DHS that we met at the golf course. We took him around. And he retired, and I guess they forgot about the Title 22 report. So something triggered 23 years later, oh, you have a Title 22 report that now they call it the Department of Drinking Water, hasn't signed off on. And it's like, well, why is that the City of Ione's fault? It's not their fault. They didn't sit on it. They did not submit it for 23 years. They submitted it. And certainly, why is it the golf course's fault? It's not. So something triggered that Title 22 report. And in this document package here, looks like US Mine is trying to get the Title 22 order from the City of Ione. My question there is, so this is in a public document that's going to be talked about in a week. How does the US Mine, and I have no problem with the US Mine, no problem at all. But how does the US Mine assume that it's going to get the tertiary water from the tertiary plant from the City of Ione if it's never had a conversation with the City of Ione? I mean, that doesn't add up to me. So I would like that looked at. And it might be a legitimate reason, might not be. But somewhere along the line, they switched from buying tertiary water from the water agency to tertiary water from the City of Ione, and there's no record of any conversation with the City of Ione, not at least that that was done in front of the public. So I'd like an answer to that. I'd like that investigated. The other thing is, last night, in fact. So everybody here's always blaming everyone. You hear Larry and Andy and everyone else blaming me because I was the general manager of the golf course and I got the water turned on, blah, 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 and I'm poisoning everybody, blah, blah, blah. That's actually not true because I don't make the call. And then you heard that the wastewater committee told George to send the water from the prison. George, was that true? Is that true? Did the wastewater committee last year tell you to switch over water from ARSA to CDCR?
Not me.
No. Okay. So that's, again, thank you, George. So that's not true. What I understand happened, because as you heard, Jack and Stacy were pissed, like they always are, like they are with the water. They always are. Okay. So what happened was that was an arrangement between ARSA and the wastewater operator. That's what I found out. So it had nothing to do with the wastewater committee or me or anybody else. Anyway, last night, Stacy, do I want them to turn the water on the golf course? Hell yes, I do. Okay. Do I think it's illegal? No, I don't. I think they're overreaching, but that's all going to work itself out. CDCR, everyone has a beef for them. They're out. They've already said they're out. So they're gone. So whether their water's good or their water's bad, they're gone.
They haven't said that yet.
They have said that. They said they're not going to be part of any new contract. So they're out. Is that correct?
Contract, but not permit.
Correct. So ARSA said they're out 3 to 8 years because they're going to go alone. So we have a problem. But last night we were blamed, or the council gets blamed for, we drug our feet, okay? And that's why they're mad, and that's why we don't want to ask them anything, and that's why they hate Ione, et cetera, okay? So when did the Title 22 report, I'll be pretty quick on this one. So the regional board, and this is all from the city's website, the city's agendas, okay? I'll read it real quick. On the 23rd of December, 2022, the regional board sent a letter to the city demanding that Ione complete and submit a new Title 22 report no later than March 15th, 2023. That's 80 days, okay? That's impossible, okay? They sent that letter to Mayor Epperson via email. Got it right here if you want to read it. By the 27th, when the city got it, Dan Epperson was no longer a city council person. Okay, there was an election and the new council took its seat on the 20th of December, and Stacy Rhodes was elected mayor. Jack Mitchell, vice mayor. The regional board also in that letter says, the cost of a Title 22 report is going to be $3,000, right here in the letter. Okay. New council was seated on December 20th. The next meeting, so we have a letter from the regional board saying, if you don't get this done by March 15th, you're in big trouble. Okay. You would think we would talk about it. January 3rd, we have a meeting, gets canceled, right? It's right after the holidays. Okay. January 17th, 2023. Remember, Stacy Rhodes, the mayor, he sets the agenda. No mention was made of the letter at all. The meeting was all about committee appointments and closed session. You can go and read them. February 7th, the meeting was about getting rid of the city manager because Stacy didn't like him, so he had to go. So that meeting was all about getting rid of Rock, which is what they did. Still no mention of the Title 22 report. February 21st, they were still working on how are we going to replace the city manager? Are we going to get an interim or permanent one? What's the deal? March the 7th, just 1 week before the deadline, there was a presentation on groundwater monitoring by Lisa Rubin about, VOCs and everything in the water. No mention of the Title 22 report. Okay, nobody even wrote a letter to the regional board and said, hey, we can't make the March 15th deadline. Nobody even bothered to write a letter, okay? March 21st, March 21st, another meeting, we're after the deadline. Nobody mentioned anything about Title 22 report. The wastewater operator was top of the subject. The city attorney resigned. The superintendent of public works retires. And the acting city manager, who did a good job at the time there, resigned as acting city manager. Okay. No mention of the Title 22 report. And now we're past the deadline. Next meeting, April 4th, we hire. Why do we hire the person that we're in a lawsuit with? But that's what Stacy Rhodes did. Okay. So he hired Amy Gedney from ARSA without any council input until after the fact. No mention of the Title 22 report. So finally, May 16th, there's a presentation by West Yost that does now mention the Title 22 report, and the regional board needs it 6 months after they send the letter. Okay, now, I don't have a problem with Stacy, other than I think it's 99.9% water issues. Okay, other than that, we get along fine. So he blames the council for their inaction and why the regional board's mad at us. He's the mayor, he sets the agenda, he was on the wastewater committee and never took one step to address the Title 22 report. So I don't know what his ultimate reasons are. There's some speculation that maybe it was intentional and water's going to go somewhere else. That's to be decided. But for sure, it wasn't anybody on the council's fault that the regional board's mad about the Title 22 and the tertiary plan. So I think that this needs to be looked at by someone. I'm not sure who that is. Maybe it's the Attorney General. There's a bunch of conflicts in here. And I think that it needs to be looked at. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Anyone else here would like to make a comment?
Am I shut out?
No.
No. One thing I've noticed that this administration likes to do is not put things in writing. Our agendas speak to that. A lot of discussion, no paper trail. I've been accused of writing too many emails, and other people are proud that they don't write any. That should concern you if there's no paper trail in government. This report that is on the Water Board website outlines the whole process that has been taken place. You go to AWA, you look at the project, you look at the $14-15 million project that they're putting in place so they can start servicing industrial facilities. They talk about it. They talk about laying additional pipe. They talk about increasing the amount of water going to US Mine. They cover all the bases. And they're moving forward on that agreement with the promise they've got an easement. We don't know anything about it. This was going on for years. This started in 2021. Never, ever was that brought up to the council members, any of the legislative bodies. It suddenly appears in February. Even the athletic fields are like, why are we putting plastic in our athletic fields? It made no sense. That project at AWA lays everything out. Every single step it lays out, and it's clear as day. They're going to get free water. It's going to expand capacity. That's a bonus for the city. But they are going to, and it says free water, free of charge. And if there ever is a cost, they might build it into the servicing agreement that they have with US Mine. But until then, water's going for free. I had no idea that US Mine was having a project at all, that they were planning on a project. This is a massive project, very large, multiple ponds. They're going to do something with tailings, use the water on tailings, create a product with the tailings. I don't know. But when you look at this document that's recent from the California State Water Board, it says, and this is where they receive comments back after they post a notice. And it says, other changes, response to comments, US Mine. Language was added to allow the discharger, which is US Mine, to accept tertiary treated Title 22 compliant water from the city of Ione. Plain as day. The discharger may replace some or all or some of the raw water from AWA needed to supplement on-site processing water with the tertiary recycled water supplied by the same agency. The discharger, and this was revised, new comment, the discharger, US Mine, may replace some or all of the raw water needed to supplement on-site processing water with Title 22 compliant tertiary recycled water supplied by the same agency or by the city of Ione, provided the discharger acquires any permits that may be required. The city of Ione must apply for and receive coverage under the State Water Board and must provide a Title 22. I can't read it any different. I didn't write it. There's a meeting on June 20th. It's a public meeting. This has been going on for years. I just want transparency, and I want the city of Ione to benefit from this. I mean, that's the way it goes. You know, we have developers, we ask them to build schools, we ask them to put parks in. We've got $90,000 to $100,000 a year that we pay to use water. They say in both of these, maybe not US Mine project, but the AWA project, they say right in there, they're going to pass the cost if they don't get enough grants onto the taxpayers, onto the ratepayers. So that's that type of government I'm not for. I'm not for them growing bigger and raising our rates as they make money. And both of these projects, AWA and US Mine, are going to make some money, and the city of Ione should share in it, period. The other items, they're all in Stacy's own writing. There's his words. All of those articles are in the newspaper. He's trashing council. He's calling staff incompetent. He's doing everything that they're all accusing me of doing. I just didn't go so far as to put it in a newspaper several times. There's at least 6 articles. His Facebook posts are all public. I didn't even include half of them in this because I was just done. If this dies here, it dies here, but it's not going to die with me because I will take it up the ladder. And if nothing's wrong, let the experts say that. Let the attorney general say they've done nothing wrong. But we're not going to spend money on this. I'm done.
Okay. At this time, if the council has concluded deliberations, I will entertain motions from the council. And the council may take no action or direct further investigation by a neutral investigator or formation of an ad hoc committee, or make an admonishment to all council members, or continue the matter to a future hearing at which time the council will consider providing a warning to the named council member or consider adopting a resolution of censure.
I think we should do the same as what we did to the last censure, and that's hire an investigator and see if these claims are true or they're not true.
More comments?
I have a question for Josh.
Sure.
Several council members are included in these complaints through emails. Any conflict there?
On the council members voting on what to do with Mayor Road censure?
Yeah, because the emails,
No.
there's emails with the vice mayor on them. There's emails with Mr. Mitchell on them.
The only people who can consider if the mayor is engaged in objectionable conduct or something they want to condemn are the rest of the council. That you're just considering if the Mayor Rhodes has broken some rule or something the council wants to
But
condemn.
it would protect them saying he didn't.
I'm willing to waive anything that's said in there for me. personally because one comment was that I agreed with I was upset and regarding the council not voting in favor of the AstroTurf. So I don't really think that's too damning. So
I'm talking about you're on an email between AWA before it became to council.
Well, you're not,
on the
we're not,
easement.
I would say this whole hearing, I would say, has taken a bit of a turn.
Yeah, you didn't know about that, did you?
But the item before you is considering if something should be looked into further for Mayor Rhodes and his conduct. Anything beyond that is not what you're considering this evening.
okay. Okay, Jack, do you have any comments?
No, I know for me, if you didn't, I have nothing to hide. I've had since I've been on the board, just so you guys know, I think it's been, I don't know if I'm at 8 or 10 FPPC notifications from other board members coming after me. I've published, or I'm the publisher at the newspaper. I've had articles that have been authored by several council members beating up each other, beating up me. And those are all online and easy to access. For me, I'd admonish all the elected officials to be mindful of adopted rules and policies, but I don't know that you guys have the heart to follow it.
Okay, does anybody want to, Dominic, what did you say you'd like to do? Again?
I'd like to be consistent and hire an investigator to see if these allegations are true or they're not true.
Are those our only options?
No.
Josh, I'm talking
As
to
opposed to what?
Josh. Sending this up, we can give you direction to send it anywhere.
Nothing stops you from investigating or looking into other things further that are different than what Mayor Rhodes specifically did. That can be on an agenda anytime. But this is just about Mayor Rhodes' conduct.
As sitting here, I believe, and I'll be, hopefully not, but I'm sure I'll be accused by some, and because I want to get away from this hate speech and all these things, I really do. I'd like this council to unite, and but I don't believe they should take any action at all. That's my opinion. I think it's been stated pretty much out there by a few members of the public, and I think by the reaction tonight, considering what we discussed tonight, that I think that would be the best route to go. And let's put this behind us and let's move on. And if Councilmember Levine wants to go up the chain, that's a prerogative, But as far as the city goes, I believe, and I'd make a motion that if I can make a motion, I'd like that we take no action.
I'd second that.
Well, I'd like to speak. It's interesting that you guys can just gung ho after me. And what is in here, in writing, in the mayor's words, his statement of how proud he was that he got rid of PERC. And then you look at Dan Epperson's minutes where he says, yeah, got rid of PERC at a cost of close to $250,000, $300,000 addition a year, because PERC was in the way. And this isn't done. So you've got that. You've got the harassment of female council members, the planning commission, placing them on agendas, placing their names on agendas with no reason other than he heard somebody say she did something. So, I mean, you know where I'm going with this. You're applying policy where you see fit. Period. If that's the only option we have, I wasn't thrilled with the way the last investigator was treated. It's an ongoing, I understand it's still happening. Emails are still being monitored. Facebook accounts are still being monitored by city staff. It's ongoing. Additional documents were added after the fact. Nobody followed policy on this for mine. For mine, nobody followed policy on my censure, but on this one, we're going to play by the book.
I think number 2 is direct further investigation by a neutral investigator, and that's what we did.
That's exactly what we did. And
All right, well then Dominic, I'll second your motion.
okay. So we have a 2-2, so the motion dies.
Of course it does.
Okay.
It's not dead.
Okay. Josh, we have someone who's confused. I would like to, could you explain?
The motion for a neutral investigator fails. We also had a motion and a second for take no action and take a vote on that.
I make a motion that we take no action.
Second.
Okay, we have 2 ayes and 2 noes. So motion fails, correct? I mean,
We haven't said no yet, but can we have that option? Do we get to speak? No.
Well,
You didn't ask
Gotta call for a vote.
of course, I'll call for a vote. Of course I will, however I have to do it. I call for a vote. Dom, go ahead.
Well, all those in favor?
All those in favor?
For no action, aye.
Aye.
Nay.
All those in favor
No.
for investigator?
Aye.
No.
You've already taken,
No.
you've already taken that vote, but
I got
the motions die.
I get confused. Okay. Okay, motion died. Okay, do we have, thank you all very much for coming tonight. I'm sure some of you could use the restroom, and I know I can, and hope you have a great night. And once again, not this Sunday, but next Sunday, have a wonderful Father's Day.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Okay, I second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All righty.
You want me to send you that?